When we think of conflicts during the mid-20th century, the only major war that comes to mind is the Vietnam War of 1959. It has been popularized by books, movies,
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
songs, and even video games.
Mason, let's see what this Semtex can do.
One major conflict that did not receive much attention from the world was the Korean War, which lasted from 1950 to 1953. It is not explored much by many media outlets today, as a result of which the brutality and consequences of this war is almost forgotten. So what was this forgotten conflict, and how did it shape our future? The year was 1945. Humanity had just witnessed one of the bloodiest conflicts in human history, the Second World War. After the defeat of the fascist powers, a new rivalry between the capitalist West and the communist East was emerging. Following the Japanese surrender, Korea was finally free and was split among the Allied powers. The North was occupied by the Soviet forces, while the South was occupied by the American forces. By 1948, the country was divided in half at the 38th parallel, with the capitalist South ruled by Chairman Syngman Rhee and a communist North ruled by Kim Il-sung. Both American and Soviet troops had left the peninsula by 1949. Tensions only worsened after the withdrawal, as the North and the South both saw each other as enemies and could not accept their borders. There were a few skirmishes here and there, but nothing too major. And then it happened. At 4 a.m. on June 25th, 1950, the armies of North Korea stormed across the 38th parallel, catching a ragtag border patrol of the South Korean army off guard. Then they moved on to the rest of the country. Around 75,000 troops of the North Korean People's Army, the KPA for short, crushed the Republic of Korea's army. They successfully captured the capital city of Seoul, then went on to conquer the entire subcontinent except for the city of Busan. An appeal was made by the United Nations Security Council for North Korea to withdraw its troops, but it was ignored. As a result, the approval was granted for a UN coalition made of international forces of 16 nations, including the United States, Britain, Turkey, Finland, and New Zealand, commanded by General Douglas MacArthur. The UN troops, mainly composed of Americans, landed in South Korea in early July, but were soon pushed back on the defense by the North Korean forces, forming a perimeter around Busan to defend the line until reinforcements arrived in August. Now that they had a foothold, it was time to go on the offensive. On September 15, the United States Marines X-Corps launched an amphibious assault on the city of Incheon, almost 6 years after their last amphibious offensive on the beaches of Normandy. The assault was an unexpected success, as North Korean forces were pushed back beyond the 38th parallel. Very soon, Seoul was recaptured along with the whole of South Korea by the end of the month. It seemed that the most logical thing to do was to end the war, as the communist invasion had been successfully repelled and the country had to be stabilized. General MacArthur, however, had other plans. On October 7, 1950, UN troops moved into North Korea. By October 12th, Pyongyang, the North Korean capital, was captured. Morale was high, as the future seemed to have a place for a unified and free Korea. UN troops pushed forward, eventually capturing the Yalu River. Unbeknownst to everyone, however, MacArthur's success had given rise to a sleeping giant. The newly found communist Chinese government under Mao Zedong had been observing the war with great worry. After the fall of Pyongyang, the Chinese decided to support their ideological brethren, and around 300,000 soldiers of the People's Liberation Army, PLA for short, led by veterans of the Chinese Civil War, were sent across the border and into North Korea. A whole new phase of the conflict had begun. The first Chinese offensive began on October 25th with a victory in the Battle of Unsan. The UN coalition was overwhelmed by the superior numbers of the PLA. Adding fuel to the fire, the North Korean winter set in, leading to temperatures dropping below -22 degrees Celsius. Retreating and defending the south seemed to be the wiser option. MacArthur, however, insisted that the UN offensive continue. The coalition suffered heavy losses at the hands of the Chinese. Eventually, they were forced to abandon Pyongyang on the 5th of December and go on the defensive. The UN forces were pushed back, and by January 1951, Seoul was again under the hands of the communists. MacArthur pressured President Harry Truman and insisted to use the atom bomb on China. After a few weeks, Truman dismissed MacArthur for his insubordinate behavior and put General Matthew B. Ridgway in his place. Ridgway launched Operation Thunderbolt, an offensive to recapture Seoul once and for all. Disrupted Chinese supply lines and prior reconnaissance led to the offensive being a massive success, and the capital changed hands for the fourth and final time. The remainder of the war saw it devolve into a stalemate where both sides could not deliver a killing blow. Peace talks began, but negotiations were stalled on multiple occasions. Finally, on July 27, 1953, an armistice was signed with China and North Korea. A demilitarized zone was established along the 38th parallel. It seemed that there was finally peace, but Syngman Rhee refused to formally sign the armistice. As a result, North and South Korea are at war to this very day. The Korean War was relatively short but exceptionally bloody. Nearly 5 million people died. More than half of these were civilians. Almost 40,000 Americans died in action in Korea, and more than 100,000 were wounded. The Chinese suffered the most, with around 600,000 casualties and 700,000 wounded. The Korean War played a crucial role in showing that the free world under the United States was ready to stand up to the oppressive communism spreading throughout Southeast Asia. It was also the first war of the nuclear age. Relations are still sour between the major players of the war to this day. South Korea has become a model global citizen, proving to be a valuable asset to the world economy and industry. North Korea, however, has become one of the most isolationist and most oppressive regimes in today's world. They are now armed with nuclear warheads. And the most terrifying part about this war, it is not over. It is just on pause.